Hi folks, and welcome to another video from aplanetruth.info. It is September 2017 at about 9 o'clock on the East Coast or West Coast Pacific Standard Time. They're announcing a mass evacuations out of Florida. Get out of the entire state. Some say 3.5 million, some say 5 million. Here's 5.6 million people told to evacuate. The storm was called over a week ago, hitting now. I want to get into some anomalies, but I want to get in some news going on around pertinent to what's happening here. Kim Kardashian determined to take Taylor Swift down is made up story. Yeah, we need to know about this stuff, folks. Sorry, just a little gallow humor here. Yeah, just to give you an idea what's going on as of yesterday at 4 p.m. This is from someone who's well prepped, it looks like. Stuff is interior filling bathtubs, trash cans. Howdy media is missing the reality. And here we're going to get into how all of a sudden Hurricane Irma suddenly makes a right-hand turn, signals, and goes straight up to Florida like no hurricane has ever done before. And they were predicting it over a week ago. So massive numbers of East Coasters came to the West Coast based on storms. This only exacerbated fuel shortage in the West. Seeing officials saying to people to make final evacuations now just seems silly. 6.5 million people told to evacuate the entire state of Florida. After checking with people within the recovery and process, everything is closing at 8 p.m. tonight, and there's no plans for opening anything until Tuesday. That's 4 days of severe hunkering down. The earliest fuel shipments I could confirm anticipated to arrive on Wednesday of next week. That's right when the next Jose is supposed to hit. Day after that, apparently. That's 5 days of self-sufficient fuel. Power is going to be a big issue. If the path is anything like current projections, we can anticipate a power outage in Florida, breaking all known records. Once again, the geographical dynamic means the southernmost impact zone will be without power the longest, and without fuel the longest. As a rough guess, based entirely on driving around and paying attention, it would appear that 25% of homesteads are not prepared at all, 50% of those observed in the regions are moderately prepared, and 25% appear generally well prepared. I would estimate the number of people fully comprehending what might take place over the next 5-10 days, let's make that a couple weeks at least, knowledge of how to move forward is in the 3 to 5% range. That's about the same range of the general population who are considered to be, quote, preppers. Those who fail to prepare to get... I don't want to say it. Jose, still a dangerous Category 4 hurricane, threatens second blow to Irma-ravaged islands. This is coming in right behind Irma. They've got them set up, folks. I'm going to show how this storm's just bringing to your attention that these have been tracking hurricanes for a very long time. 1948, the military had their Air Force hurricane hunters. And look at the coast. 1, 2, 3, 4 going up the coast. We'll get into that a little more. Mexico, poor Mexico, man, is hit by a tropical storm, Katia, less than 24 hours after devastating 8.1 magnitude. I'd like to be interested in what the word Katia means. It sounds like a Spanish name. Poor people down there, say a prayer for them. In Florida is nearing 10 years with no hurricanes. This is from 2015. But before that, the last hurricane to make landfall in Florida was Wilma on October 24th, 2005. Florida's current hurricane-free streak dwarfs the previous record dating to 1851, which was 5 consecutive seasons from 1980 to 1984. This is almost a 10-year period without a hurricane in Florida is rather remarkable, given the state has 1,260 miles of coastline. Unless you take in the fact that all weather is manipulated and managed. They can make it rain whenever they want it to. All right, let's look at the path of Irma and show why it's the anomaly of all hurricane anomalies, not only being the biggest recorded hurricane on history, the most devastating, the most destructive hitting the Caribbean, but also the strangest path that a hurricane has ever taken before. Let's take a look. All right, so let's get into it. So here's a map from the past 50 years of the major, biggest hurricanes coming from across the Atlantic. Over 50 years, folks. Take a look. Cuba up to Florida. Never has happened before. These are the Cape Verde that are coming from the east of west coast of Africa, strutting across. But look, and I want to get into this, how it comes to Cuba, and all of a sudden, this thing is going straight as can be. It's been going across the Atlantic in the Cape Verde direction. It's always gone, and then it gets to Cuba. Now it's spinning for 24 hours. It's spinning in Cuba. And here we see it spinning and spinning. All of a sudden, it's stalled out over Cuba for 24 hours. And then all of a sudden, it reaches a big stop sign as soon as it gets to the Gulf and hangs a right angle turn. Out of nowhere, Cinderella story. Hurricane never before hit like this before, and it makes a right turn at Cuba. Maybe there was a stop sign. Maybe there was a cop officer of the weather control saying go right. No, there's something else going on, folks. It's weather or manipulation. They knew this was going to hit Florida a week ago. They predicted it was going to happen, and it happens because they control it. They own the weather. Hurricane hunters have been around for 50 years, folks. They've studied it. They know how to create it. They know how to manipulate it. They can do it from the air. They can do it from the land. They can do it from the sea, and this is their biggest creation so far, and it's a wet dream for these guys. But look at Hurricane Matthew. Look at Hurricane Irma. None of them have ever made a right turn like this before. It has never happened in the history of weather. This is another clear indication of weather manipulation. I believe this was Katrina coming in, and now we got Katia coming in. Katrina, Katia, same kind of name, pure. I look at it coming up from the Bahamas, Matthew's path coming straight up this way. Came from the south, came across, and then went up. No storms have ever gone Cuba and hung a right, especially in counter-cyclical directions, folks. And let's take a look at the anomalies of the images going on chronicled by Truth Channel.
This image does not, has not, and I don't know if it will match what is actually being reported on the ground. See, when you click on the satellite image information, all you're doing is you're getting this superimposed onto this. I know what this is. We all know what this is. So this is a 150-mile-an-hour hurricane called Irma that's spinning around over Cuba and has been hanging out here for over 24 hours. And for some reason, and this is only from NASA, this is all satellite images come from NASA. Let me repeat this. There is no independent satellite image that is coming from anywhere. It's all from NASA. This is all from one source. But because this is a mosaic, radars are mosaics generally, which means that the information comes from thousands of sources that all get compiled into one. It's just raw data. This is raw data. This is very, very hard to get wrong, because this is what's actually happening on the ground. So let's take a peek at what is actually happening on the ground. We have in Cuba this storm that has been brewing from NASA all day. We see that now there's actually some oomph to it. There's some water in these clouds, these orange bands. This is rain. The rest of the green is just clouds. We have wind speed at 20 miles an hour, okay? And that's right here. Let's go over to Havana. Havana, I gotta actually click on Havana. Havana, Cuba's wind speeds at 8 miles an hour. And this is as of 1:55 a.m. So this was only 10 minutes ago. Okay, this information is updating continually. As you can see, these are, you know, this is going, I think, every 5 minutes or so. I don't know, every 10 minutes it looks like. Okay, so let me back up. Now I got a link from Kafka Winston, a YouTube channel who's I will provide a link in the notes here. She gave me this. I don't speak Spanish well enough to be able to find the wind speeds and stuff on here, but the image is interesting. It's a very interesting image. It does, in part, match what we're seeing here. So if this is Hurricane Irma, it's not being recorded by their own land recording instruments. The instruments that are feeding into IntelliCast are giving us wind speeds of 8 miles an hour. So if this is a hurricane, which there is a circle here. I don't know why, but there's also a lot of stripes. So before I'm going to give this tons of credibility of being a hurricane simply because there's a circle here, I'm also going to question what the hell are all these stripes. This is a very strange looking storm, and I can't measure it. I can tell you that it does physically look like it's here, although these are clouds. You know, I'm not going to even analyze this, but it does match this picture here. Kind of, sort of. But the wind speeds. This whole purpose of me doing this is because this is real-time data that as soon as this browser refreshes will no longer be available to anybody. So I'm capturing this real time simply for points of reference.
So what this lady who's doing this fine work on the Truth Channel is not being able to put together is the geoengineering using the Doppler NEXRAD radar systems. And here you see them from the Dominican Republic, Haiti, Jamaica. You know, you've got Guantanamo Bay right over here run by the United States. And so they can just literally push the storm at a right angle towards Florida. Here's another shot of it. You can see that this is occurring. They have them all set up, ready to go. So here it comes to the MUVR. They start turning on the system, boom, and they can blast it straight up into Florida, right angle hurricanes, most powerful ever, and they'll steer the weather right up into Florida to cause the massive amount of damage being inflicted on a hurricane that's never, ever shown a path like this in history. All of history, folks. It's geoengineered. This is weather war terrorism, and people need to be held accountable.
Teams will be out surveying the impact of last night's storm.
National Weather Service says as many as 6 possible tornadoes were reported on the ground.
So rain totals as high as 6 inches in
Wow.
southwestern Minnesota, several spots over 3 inches of
This is in
rain.
a couple hours, right?
Yeah, I mean, and that was kind of the interesting thing, and probably one of the biggest reasons why we don't have a ton of damage reports right now is because when those storms went through, there was so much rain, it was really difficult to pick out the rotation. Normally, when we see tornadoes, it's a little bit of a drier setup, and you're able to see that funnel cloud forming kind of early in the afternoon when we saw that first one come, and then as the National Weather said, 6 more reports of tornadoes. Yeah. I'll show you the line that took. First one popped up just to the west of Lake Crystal. You can see it there. That was at about 4:20. Kept moving up north through Nicollet by about 5, bringing down tree branches. I think the biggest I saw was about 12 inches in diameter. Kept moving northward towards Gaylord, and still by 6:15, this was that heavy rain-wrapped tornado just to the west of Gaylord, and then things.
How about it?
All right, so here's a few reader comments that have been coming in there. Just want to bring your attention to, I live in Portland, Oregon. The fires here are crazy. Day before yesterday, winds changed direction. I had to wear a mask because the smoke was so bad. 1/8 of an inch of ash covering my car. Fire located in the gorge. Only 7% contained. 44 years old, lived here my whole life. Never had to wear a mask. I've been trying to do the math. I do not understand how an island in the eye of the storm pummeled by Barbuda, 60 miles away from St. Thomas, which sustains much less damage. Just like Puerto Rico, the storm system is reportedly the size of France. The storm would be almost 500 miles from end to end. How is it missing locations very close together? It was 2 days' travel from St. Bart's to the coast of San Juan, 211 miles away. The state of emergency was called on Monday. though it was 5 or more days off, and they're predicting very specific outcomes. How do they know? Because they're making it. All right, Sherry Ann, 10 hours ago. I've always wondered if these hurricanes were so massive and dangerous with wind speeds 155 miles an hour. How in the world do so-called hurricane hunters fly into storms? They've been doing it a long time. Sounds like NASA and their fake moon landings. We are again not being told of the truth. Seems the objective was to get people scrambling to buying up lock, stock, and barrel while filling the pockets of the powers that be who own the gas, food, and supply companies. Then telling everyone after they've spent all their money on supplies to get out of their homes. And there was 3.5 million people, 6 million people, something like that, evacuating out of Florida, they're asking now. Sounds like the perfect win-win setup for them. Hegelian dialect problem, reaction, solution. You got it. And then they come, she made the example after the disaster in Haiti, they created a boldly coming for donations to help the victims, and then while laughing to the bank. This is what happened in Haiti, which destroyed the already impoverished nation. We gave them $500 million to build homes. They claimed 130 were built, but only 6 to 7 were built, and there are more shantytown homes than American homes, while they pocketed the $500 million. This is how they work, folks. All right, and I want to get into the Coriolis effect and get into a little bit of flat Earth, because none of this is making sense on a round ball spinning at 1,000 miles an hour, and the Coriolis effect. Why isn't the Coriolis effect taking? How is the Coriolis effect that is allegedly proven by astronomy and astrophysicists and Neil deGrasse Tyson and everybody else, that we have these Coriolis effects that have been proven and proven, yet the hurricanes are absolutely counter-cyclical and counter-trend to the Coriolis effect? How can that be if the Earth is spinning at 1,000 miles an hour and the oceans are said to rotate at the equator one direction and below on the southern equator another direction, yet it's totally, completely counter-trend to what these hurricanes are doing? Just doesn't make any sense and doesn't fit. Here, take a look at this picture. So before we can talk about the Coriolis effect, we have to understand what the heliocentric theory is, that we're spinning around at 1,000 miles per hour every single day at the equator, that we're going at 1,000 miles a second or 533 million miles a year to travel around the sun back from our birthday, and that we're traveling over 600,000 miles an hour around the Milky Way at the same time. This is what they believe. This is what they tell us is true. So this is from my Flat Earth book, 500-Year Investigation into a Massive Heliocentric Lie. And the Coriolis effect says that the waters will go in a general rule is that waters will go in a counter-trend, counter-cyclical. See, they say the Earth is rotating at 1,000 miles an hour from the west to the east, yet the waters are going counter-cyclical trend, except when they get to the equator, and then magically they are reversed on the bottom and go opposite. So what is the Coriolis effect? Said to be caused when the mass is moving in a rotating system that experiences a force acting perpendicular to the direction and motion to the axis of rotation. So rotation is this way, perpendicular force is the opposite or counter trend to the prevailing rotation of the Earth. It's said to cause sinks and toilet bowls in the northern hemisphere to drain and spin in opposite directions, which we'll get into in a minute. It cannot be replicated in a laboratory. It's said it occurs. So here's the Earth spinning at 1,000 miles an hour west to east, yet the oceans are magically said to be going, and the water in the oceans going in the opposite counter-cyclical direction. Yet waterfalls fall straight down, even though we're spinning at 1,000 miles an hour. All right, let's prove once again how the Coriolis effect cannot be true.
Also in the mid-19th century, another Frenchman named Gaspard Gustave Coriolis performed several experiments showing the effect of kinetic energy on rotating systems, which have ever since become mythologized as proof of the heliocentric theory. The Coriolis effect is often said to cause sinks and toilet bowls in the northern hemisphere to drain spinning in one direction, while in the southern hemisphere causing them to spin the opposite way, thus providing proof of the spinning ball Earth. Once again, however, just like Foucault's pendulums spinning either which way, sinks and toilets in the northern and southern hemisphere do not constantly spin in any one direction. Sinks and toilets in the very same household are often found to spin in opposite directions, depending entirely upon the shape of the basin and the angle of the water's entry, not the supposed rotation of the Earth. Jennifer Horton wrote, While the premise makes sense that the Earth's eastward spin would cause the water in a toilet bowl to spin as well, in reality the force and speed at which the water enters and leaves the receptacle is much too great to be influenced by something as minuscule as a single 360-degree turn over the span of a day. When all is said and done, the Coriolis effect plays no larger a role in toilet flushes than it does in the revolution of CDs in your stereo. The things that really determine the direction in which water leaves your toilet or sink are the shape of the bowl and the angle at which the liquid initially enters the bowl. The Coriolis effect is also said to affect bullet trajectories and weather patterns as well, supposedly causing most storms in the northern hemisphere to rotate counterclockwise and most storms in the southern hemisphere to rotate clockwise, to cause bullets from long-range guns to tend towards the right of the target in the northern hemisphere and to the left in the southern hemisphere. Again, however, the same problems remain. Not every bullet and not every storm consistently displays the behavior and therefore cannot reasonably be used as proof of anything. What about the precision of the sight aperture, human error, and wind? What about Michelson-Morley and Gale's proven motion of the ether's potential effect? Why does the Coriolis effect affect most storms, but not all? If some storms rotate clockwise in the north and counterclockwise in the south, how do those storms escape the Coriolis force? And if the entire Earth's spin is uniform, why should the two hemispheres be affected any differently? Coriolis's effect and Foucault's pendulum are both said to prove the Earth moves beneath our feet, but in reality only prove how easy it can be for wolves in sheep's clothing to pull the wool over our eyes.
Hi folks, and welcome to another video from aplanetruth.info. It is September 2017 at about 9 o'clock on the East Coast or West Coast Pacific Standard Time. They're announcing a mass evacuations out of Florida. Get out of the entire state. Some say 3.5 million, some say 5 million. Here's 5.6 million people told to evacuate. The storm was called over a week ago, hitting now. I want to get into some anomalies, but I want to get in some news to hit day after that, apparently. That's 5 days of self-sufficient fuel. Power is going to be a big issue. If the path is anything like current projections, we can anticipate a power outage in Florida, breaking all known records. Once again, the geographical dynamic means the southernmost impact zone will be without power the longest, and without fuel the longest. As a rough guess, based entirely on driving around and paying attention, it would appear that 25% of homesteads are not prepared at all, 50% of those observed in the regions are moderately prepared, and 25% appear generally well prepared. I would estimate the number of people fully comprehending what might take place over the next 5-10 days going on around pertinent to what's happening here. Kim Kardashian determined to take Taylor Swift down is made up story. Yeah, we need to know about this stuff, folks. Sorry, just a little gallow humor here. Yeah, just to give you an idea what's going on as of yesterday at 4 p.m. This is from someone who's well prepped, it looks like. Stuff is interior filling bathtubs, trash cans. How the media is missing the reality. And here we're going to get into how all of a sudden Hurricane Irma suddenly makes a right-hand turn, signals, and goes straight up to Florida like no hurricane has ever done before. Let's make that a couple weeks at least. Knowledge of how to move forward is in the 3 to 5% range. That's about the same range of the general population who are considered to be, quote, preppers. Those who fail to prepare to get... I don't want to say it. Jose, still a dangerous Category 4 hurricane, threatens second blow to Irma-ravaged islands. This is coming in right behind Irma. They've got them set up, folks. I'm going to show how this storm's just bringing to your attention that these have been tracking hurricanes for a very long time. 1948, the military, and they were predicting it over a week ago. Massive numbers of East Coasters came to the West Coast based on storms. This only exacerbated fuel shortage in the West. Seeing officials saying to people to make final evacuations now just seems silly. 6.5 million people told to evacuate the entire state of Florida. After checking with people within the recovery and process, everything is closing at 8 p.m. tonight, and there's no plans for opening anything until Tuesday. That's 4 days of severe hunkering down. The earliest fuel shipments I could confirm anticipated arrive on Wednesday of next week. That's right when the next Jose is supposed to